Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Bob, and I'm in the studio today with Dale, and we're bringing Rich in remotely.
I understand we have a special guest today.
Yes, we do, and let's hear a little bit about her.
Well, guys, Katherine Dahlke is with us today, a dedicated advocate for increasing women's participation in politics. Katherine recently attended AmericaFest, where she observed and engaged with the conservative community. She's here to share her insights on the event and how to empower more women in political spheres. Back to you in the studio with Katherine.
Well, welcome to the show, Katherine.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
I'm really curious about what went on at the AmFest, so we want to talk about that, and also the Zuckerberg announcement. And you've got some events coming up. I know at least one of them that you've got coming up, so we want to talk about that. But before we start that, I'd like to know a little bit about you, what got you into politics, what your passion is, and tell us all about it.
Excellent. Thanks again. Thanks so much for the opportunity. AmFest was mind-blowing, but we'll get to that in a moment. And let me give you a little bit of background and history. So I'm here in Wisconsin and very, very engaged in Wisconsin politics, being a swing state. But the birthplace of my interest goes all the way back to my roots in Boston, right? I'm a 1776 girl, walked the Freedom Trail. My dad was a newspaper recorder and he covered the political beat. And we're talking Tip O'Neill years back in the day, right? We're talking the Dukakis campaign. So really listening and having conversation at a young age about the importance of being engaged and informed shaped my beliefs. I skipped school once in my life to go protest and heckle at a Mondale Ferraro rally when I was in high school. I was that kind of nerd out there. To be quite honest, over the years, I wasn't as engaged as I am now. I dipped my toe back in, excuse me, probably when Ross Perot was running, and this goes back to, the late 70s, early 80s, and just getting intrigued there. But coming to Wisconsin, and this is around the time that Trump was running, first I know, we were looking at really the polarization of the party, and either it was extreme left or extreme right. And we just didn't feel that our voices were heard. When I say we, my spouse and I was looking at the economy, struggles, lack of educational support, in my field of work. It was just a tough time. And I remember getting a message from my spouse at the time. He says, "I think I'm running for Congress." I'm sorry, what? He said, "Running for Congress." And my politically minded sister who worked in the DC swamp said, "He's not qualified." I'm like, well, hang on a second. There's a document out there, I think it's called the Constitution, and he is a U.S. citizen and he is above the age of 32. So he is qualified to run for Congress. And we launched an independent campaign, a shoestring campaign in Wisconsin's 6th district. Glenn Grothman was the incumbent, still is in office. We've become quite good friends with him. Traveled the entire 6th district. I managed his campaign, learned about how to research issues and to share information, and got so engaged in conversation with the people. Unknown gentleman running for office without a college degree, who had strong conservative beliefs but was part of a union, so he was definitely a centrist. No money, 3 people running a campaign. We got 20,000 votes, 5% of the vote, which is unheard of for an independent candidate.
Yeah.
And the Library of Congress reached out to us and said, "We want to put your website in the online Library of Congress." I said, "Dude, we made history. We didn't win, but the appetite was whetted." So a number of campaigns later, and just sort of watching the way the wind blows, we realized tilting at the windmill of being a centrist wasn't going to work. We needed to commit, and we went very solidly, to the right. That's where our heart was. Joined the Republican Party, and here's where my story got a little interesting. What's that expression? Well-behaved women don't make history. I would put myself in that category. I would say I'm probably not a well-behaved woman. And I noticed something in the central lands here. Again, coming from Boston, I'm pretty outspoken. I would attend Lincoln Day dinners and events, and I would watch party leaders, men, walk right past me and right to my significant other. And at that point in time, we were divorced, but would still attend events together, have a conversation, politically charged conversation, push me out of the conversation and not acknowledge me. And I felt that women were relegated to being arm candy or, the nice cheerleaders, but never the folks who were put up to run. Very few women candidates. And we at the time, we'd lost a tough race for the state Supreme Court. This was all wrapped up around the abortion issue. And we had our Lincoln Day dinner. And I thought, I'm going to ask some tough questions of the state party leader around what's going on, because we can't continue in this fractured way. Room full of people. My 8-year-old granddaughter was with me at the time. She's, very engaged. I'm wearing a bright red leather, you cannot miss me, leather jacket. The question and answer session comes, and there's my hand, up, 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 for 20 minutes. And she said, Grandma, how come he's not calling on you? How come he's not, asking you a question? He said, because he doesn't want to hear my question. Finally got called on. And I said, look, I'm just curious. How big is your tent? Well, what do you mean? I said, is there room for me in your tent? I said, here's who I am. I'm in my mid-50s. I am independently financially secure. I'm divorced. I'm a grandmother. I'm a businesswoman. I write donation checks to you. I have strong constitutional values, but I'm also a woman, and I don't get all wrapped around the axle of the abortion issue. And you are losing members because you have a purity test around who can be in your party. Is there room for me? There were a few scatterings of applauses. He didn't know how to answer the question. They wouldn't really engage. I pursued supporting the party. I did fundraising for them. I tried to push my way in. I donated an office space for the campaign run here for this last presidential campaign to the tune of self-funded, well over $1,000 a month, completely outfitted. And the party leader threw the keys back in my face. Don't want it. Don't want to. Don't want you. Don't want this. Great. New conservatives were born at that point in time. And, that was our opportunity to get very engaged in grassroots politics, partner with Turning Point, Americans for Prosperity, Moms for Liberty, anybody underneath that red tent who felt like they didn't have a spot. We created a safe space for people. And, that's really how it all got started. And we're just rolling from there and growing strong.
Did you ruffle their feathers somehow, or is it a regional thing where, your area, they're just kind of back in the Stone Ages, because there's a lot of women in politics nowadays?
There are. I think it's a regional thing, to be quite frank. Two factors. If you run for local office, we're seeing it here at the city council level. Well, did you grow up here? Were you born here? No. Well, then why are you engaged in local politics? I live here, pay taxes here, and I'm engaged. And the second piece of it was, again, I think it's just a generational thing. We have a pretty conservative, old school mentality Republican Party. And the other piece of it is the purity test. If you don't ascribe to a particular checklist of their beliefs, then you're not a true Republican. I was called a Democrat. They spread a rumor that I'm a Democrat because I don't pass their purity test. I'm like, are you kidding?
Where were some of your disagreements with them?
So, again, constitutionally conservative. It's 2025. We are not going to win on completely banning abortions. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen.
I agree.
They were so upset about the shift and the fact that the Supreme Court ruling was overturned, which it should have been. Legislatively, it is a state issue. It needs to be decided at the state. We just need to be pragmatic about it. And, I think there's this extreme religiosity that, you're a sinner. Well, that's between me and God. That's not between me and my legislature. You can't have it two ways. You can't have my body, my choice when it comes to vaccines and being, anti-vaccine, but say, no, not my body, my choice when it comes to abortion. And those are my personal beliefs. Am I going to support I'll support the candidate. I'll support the party, but to be shunned for one's personal beliefs when everything else is in alignment, it just doesn't make sense. We're never going to agree 100% on everything.
Right. There's got to be a compromise.
Yeah. So
I just want to add in, Bob, I have to agree with you in regards to, is it regional? I come from Illinois, just across the border.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people in politics that I dealt with were women. I have to say that most of them were Democrats, even though I'm conservative. And I'm just wondering if it's a difference now in Wisconsin, if the attitude is in the dark ages in regards to women in politics.
I do think it's a Wisconsinism, and I think there's also, and I'm gonna use the age card. I'm kind of up there too. It is a bit of an ageism, an old guardism, and I want to kind of slide turning point into the conversation here. What's going to change the shape of politics here in Wisconsin is the renaissance and engagement that we're seeing happening with young people on campus, and I attribute that to Charlie Kirk and his movement. What they've done to grow the young Republicans. There's been a significant growth, double-digit growth in men 18 to 24 turning out to vote and coming out as conservatives, strong conservatives, men and women themselves. I saw evidence of that at the rally. Those individuals are starting to take the lead in Dane County, up in Door County, in Brown County, and you're seeing some of these other counties start to shift. When I was at Turning Point and chatting with some of the organizers, they looked at me and they said, caucus is coming up in January. I said, yes. Are you going to run for chair? I said, I can't. It's a conflict of interest, but we will change the old guard. So I think there are a couple of elements there, Richard, that we're looking at. I think it's a strong traditionalism. It's been a very heavily focused, male-dominated for years of a particular era. We just need to make a clean sweep.
So has Charlie Kirk been involved in Madison, in the University of Madison?
I believe he did some visits in Wisconsin was blanketed during this campaign because we were such a swing state. There were a number of events that happened. I'm not an activist within Turning Point. I work alongside of them, but they galvanized a movement here. There's a gentleman, Brandon Malley, who is the chair of the Dane County Republican Party and a very strong advocate working under Charlie Kirk, who's just been a tremendous mover and shaker within the party. And he's mid-20s and just really, making a name for himself out there.
How did you get involved with Charlie Kirk and AmeriFest?
Again, it's being the right place at the right time. I'm a networker. I'm a recruiter by day, so always asking questions. So this goes back to middle of the campaign. They were recruiting regional managers. So my counterpart, Annie Brewer, who's my co-founder, took a job with Turning Point as one of their regional managers. She and her team, and we supported them as a sort of a base for call campaigns and door knocking. They were all invited out to AmericaFest and said, we'll pay for the whole thing, their airline, your hotel, and your pass. And it just happened, we were having dinner, and it was my birthday. And we were talking about it, and I'm like, oh, you're going to Arizona? I lived there for 15 years. That's cool. I'm like, I don't have anything better to do. I should be taking vacation. And I went online, I booked an airline ticket. Did you just book an airline ticket? I said, sure. And, hey, there's a VIP pass. I'm going to go buy myself a pass and treat myself. And I just put myself in the way. I got in there. I made introductions. I donated to the cause, did a heck of a lot of networking. Sometimes you just have to get out there and do it.
I've spent a lot of time in Wisconsin. I've sailed Lake Michigan for a number of years and have been into Two Rivers a few times. And when I saw that you had a following of over 400 people in such a small area, I'm wondering, how were you able to accomplish that?
Marketing out there. And I think we touched a nerve. So part of it is the power of online, and everyone has their strengths. Annie is terrific at creating these wonderful messages. I'm really good at bringing people together and having events and activities. We recognized a need, and Richard, it came to folks didn't feel like they had a place to have a conservative conversation. That's why our tagline is, we're where conservative minds unite. We had a location. We invited people to silly things, bonfires by the river, local events. We had a tailgate party during a car cruise for a local car event. We had I do an annual backyard party at my house and hire a band, and it's free food and booze and band for anybody in the area who wants to come for 4th of July. People started to come together, have conversations, make connections and friends, and then it's like that old Wella Balsam commercial, and they told 2 friends, and they told 2 friends, and so on and so on. And we began to become a little bit viral. And all of our followers bleed out past Two Rivers, throughout Manitowoc County, into Brown County, and further afield. We have folks who are watching us and what we're doing, and a little jealous of our base. But you have to make a big noise. You have to do big, crazy things in order to get recognized.
What is the age, average age in your group?
Ooh. Well, we range. I have followers who are in their 20s, and we have followers who are in their 70s out there. But I think the average of folks we see continually show up are probably going to be 45 to, I'm going to go 60. Is the range on that, right? So these are the individuals who are categorized as conservative voters who have a low propensity for getting out to vote. And what's really been, this is a perfect storm of this. If we tried to launch this 5 years ago, it probably wouldn't have happened. This was the perfect storm of, we needed to get Trump reelected. People were fed up. Charlie Kirk came in and funded all of this door knocking, Americans for Prosperity, and we happened to open up at the same time. And it was about getting out and having those conversations with those low propensity voters, and for them going, yeah, I've got to get involved. I need to get involved. And you're having a fun event. I just want to come hang out and talk with you folks. We're shocked that we open the doors to the office, even after the election. People will just come in and just sit down and want to talk. What is the latest thing? The Zuckerberg, comment, what's happening, out in the world, because they have a place to go to.
Yeah.
That's refreshing, because there was a point where if you were conservative, you didn't want to open your mouth.
No.
We had plenty of that. We couldn't get people to come on, and our thing is we wanted to bring in average people.
Yeah.
And you would get people that would be all gun ho when you talk to them, but when it came time to actually coming on the podcast, they'd get concerned. I'll probably lose my job if I do this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there were plenty of different stories where they would just back out. We had one person scheduled to come on, and just prior to that, he worked for a company, I want to say, matter of fact, it was a company in Wisconsin. They've got about 100,000 employees. Well, they sent an email out. The president of the company sent an email out to all the employees telling them in the mornings he wanted them to take 10 minutes of silence for George Floyd.
Wow. As an
Yeah.
HR professional, you saw my eyes kind of go, that's completely inappropriate. I'm surprised.
And with that, he's like, I'll be out of work in a day if they saw that I was.
Yeah. When you talk about people being afraid and businesses being afraid, it's a real thing. We started to host watch parties for the debates. The Dems weren't doing it, the party wasn't doing it, and people said, hey, are we going to get together? And we went to a couple of local businesses, and it was funny because the chatter behind the scenes, I talked to a local bar owner, and her customer said, well, aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid that other people won't come? And she said, you're all it's a debate. There's two people in the debate. There's a Democrat and there's a Republican. Doesn't matter which one you are, everybody show up. It's good for my business here. And we made it okay to gather again as a group of conservatives. And it helped out a number of small businesses. Again, we had a heck of a lot of fun. Someone shot a video of our watch party of the vice presidential campaign, and the Trump campaign picked it up, and it was on one of their video feeds. And I'm like, just be audacious, be bold, have the conversations. Can't fire us all, right?
Well, we couldn't. If you weren't conservative, they wouldn't even talk to us.
Wow.
You couldn't get Democrat to even think about the idea of coming on. They don't, and it was the typical thing. Their arguments weren't real strong. Some of the beliefs were so crazy that how do you debate it?
Katherine, when you said 5 years ago you couldn't have done this, it really made me think. When I read your bio and you said most of the time you were independent, up until 2016 I was independent. I voted for who I thought was the best candidate. But then when 2016 came around and Trump started to run, and I wasn't thrilled with Trump at all at the time, and I watched CBS News every morning. And when I saw that CBS, and then I checked the other channels out, they were all pushing towards the liberals. They were not talking about Trump, or if they were shooting him down. And that caused me to say, what's going on here?
Right.
And I ended up becoming conservative, and fully conservative at this point in my life.
And I think it's a change, and it was definitely a groundswell, Richard, and I resonate with that, where I think a lot of the folks that I talk to, if you look at the spectrum of fiscal beliefs, spiritual beliefs, social issues that are out there, at the end of the day, most of us, most people I've talked to, we don't want big government interfering. Reduce my taxes. Can my roads be drivable? I want to make a good living. I want my kids to have a good education. I believe in the foundation of the Constitution upon which our country is founded. I have the right to bear arms. I have the right to free speech and the right to gather, split assembly, etc. Social issues. Why is government getting involved in that? That are out there. So you've got folks that are across the spectrum who, at the end of the day, we align more than we realize. We've allowed the media, we've allowed special interest groups to utilize the tools, social media. I don't believe that there's true journalism out there anymore. All right, it's been pretty colored and pretty jaded to brainwash us, and we need to wake up. We need to wake up. We need to do our research. My hashtags are, get informed, get involved, get out and vote. People need to get informed. So I love that, Richard, you looked at what was happening with the media and went, something's wrong here. We need to kind of challenge and question. And I'm surprised more people haven't woken up as opposed to being woke.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And so many people that have busy lives, they don't have time to really dig in to find out what the truth really is.
Yeah.
They'll catch the news in the evening or in their car on the way home. So what they're getting is just so biased and they don't know where to turn. Where do I find the truth?
Yeah. That's a good point, Bob. And I think one of the things, I'm going to jump out to the AmericaFest event, if I could. First of all, what a mind-blowing 4 days of just being in this space with folks from all over the country and folks from other countries that are visiting, all just so passionate about the conservative movement. And I have been to so many conventions and events in my day job. I walked into this one and it was so well run. It was so engaging. It was so dynamic. And Charlie shared that it was a group of about 9 people in their 20s who do all of his events.
Yeah, it's always that way.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy good. What I really appreciated is not only did you have your addendum speakers, which again, Ben Carson, Donald Trump Jr., Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh. The list was, incredible. Steve Bannon, who frankly I hadn't been a fan of before, but I walked out an absolute, screaming fan of his. And then to have Donald Trump show up at the end, was an unannounced, expected lucky strike extra for us on that Sunday.
I was wondering about that. Was it known that he was coming there, or no? That was a surprise visit. Yeah, for security reasons, they probably wanted to keep it a surprise too.
And so they kind of they teased maybe, and then by Wednesday when we were all arriving Thursday, I was like, yeah, he's coming, and it was huge. What they did brilliantly is they had this media row. It was more than a row, and they had groups like yourself, podcasters after podcasters after podcasters, and they were taping and showing, streaming right from the event, which for someone who you go about your day job and that there are these these venues out there, that there are these shows out there, but you don't know who's who, to be able to kind of walk up and down there and see it and connect with it. And one of the ideas I had coming out was, boy, what can new conservatives do to help educate people? And we're still sort of filtering through all the contacts. We can at least be a clearinghouse. And like New Patriots does on the other side of the state, say, hey, here's our resource library. If you're interested in getting engaged, here's like 10 of our favorite shows, and here are the links to them where you can subscribe and get informed. I don't have time to chase that down myself. I'm a do it for me kind of gal, not a DIY person all the time. Give me a list and I'll start following it and really shift my perception of what's going on out there. There were so many resources that were provided at this event. It wasn't just come and see speakers. It was, learn and then continue to learn and continue to fight the fight.
So they did have like networking besides the media, and what about for educational or training, trying to get grassroots going?
So most of the people I talk to, and again, I'm a chatty Kathy, as my name would say. I talk to the person left or right of me, or those in line, were people like myself who got fed up with the establishment and wanted to start a grassroots movement. And either they had volunteered for Turning Point or other places. Every day of the event, so the morning you would have at least anywhere from 12 to 15 breakout sessions where you could connect with. And it would be, along the lines of starting an educational program, how do we do, great door knocking. It was granular enough, but without getting too deep in the weeds. So you can kind of pick up, cherry pick. I was very interested in Turning Point Academy. By the way, I'm running for school board in my city here at the behest of my grandkids, and we're seeing such a shift from good education all the way down to our primary schools, and that's what's causing this left-hand turn. So Turning Point is putting together a whole resource bank around how can you focus on better homeschool education or collaborative education or charter school education in your area to really help support the shift that we have to see. Our kids can't read, they can't write, no critical thinking skills. They're more focused on, do I want to go to the bathroom in a litter box, do I identify as a puppy as a young child, and they are in being able to read properly, print, write, do math, and take basic civics classes out there. So, those tools, we had a lot of sessions around that as well. Lots of homework to do when we get back, and it's all good to go to the event, but we have to now actually put some of these in practice.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you get on the school board, what are some of the things you're going to want to change besides everything?
Besides everything. Oh, golly, let's start with the fact that they keep changing the scoring system every year, and that's masking a problem. Being able to allow parents into the schools so we can see what's happening and better understand. They're not allowing the kids to take everything's on a laptop. They're not allowing them to take them home. There's no homework. My 13-year-old grandson has moved in with us, and every night, homework? No, grandma, no homework. They give us time to do it in school. And but I asked him, what's 10 times 15? You'd think I'd asked him to solve hard physics. So those are some of the things. It's transparency. Let's talk about the scores. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's talk about the why. Why did we just invest $33 million into a new school that we didn't need for the shiny new gym when our kids can't read? That's the hard question.
Yeah. That's true. Okay. So what did you think of, do you have anything else about that?
No, I was just curious about that.
What did you think of Zuckerberg's announcement?
We're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US.
Pandering? Come on.
Pandering.
I got that man as far as I could throw him. And I have a bad back. So yeah, I know. Isn't it convenient, when the tides are shifting, that he's going to come back and make these comments about how, oh my goodness, this is terrible that we've had this. censorship. I'm like, come on, Mark. I don't buy it for a minute. Why don't you ask his old, business partner who who helped create Facebook what he thinks of Zuckerberg's word? Was it Sergey? What, I can't remember his name from the biopic, but yeah, no, I don't trust it at all.
I've been noticing lately, and I've been talking about it a little bit, that lately I've seen so much garbage with a lot of the posts on Facebook. And, they got rid of the thumbs down to indicate that you're not interested in this kind of stuff. I think they need to bring that back.
Well, the thumbs down, I get your point. This was about people, anybody. Well, you look at the self-esteem, you look at the kids who are on social media, right?
Yeah.
They define how many likes they get, a thumbs down over hurting their feelings, and we're seeing an increase in bullying and cyberbullying, and they took the thumbs down away for that. Now you have to go through this whole click-through process of saying no more, no more, no more.
And it's you put a 30-day freeze on it, and then it comes back, and so it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, and there are different platforms out there. I haven't jumped completely onto X yet. Because so many of our followers are in the book, so it's you got to be where the people are, and hopefully you can attract them in a good way.
Katherine, did you meet anybody at AmericaFest that you think will be playing a significant role in the future of the conservative movement?
Great question. I'm just running through the presentation list in my head and some of the folks that I talked to. I would say. I'm gonna go back to Brandon Malley, who I'd actually met before AmericaFest, but I saw him there. Brandon is an up-and-comer in the Republican Party, and he's very active and Turning Point. He has a wonderful story. He's the child of Russian immigrants, Jewish Russian immigrants who came to the United States, who were very liberal, and he showed up as a shiny Republican, much to their dismay. He's worked his way up the party in his 20s, and I think he is going to be a strong mover and shaker within the party and the conservative movement out there. I would also say that I've lived in Arizona. I've been a follower of Carrie Lake for years. I think she was done dirty in the last two elections with election fraud. I think there's a space for her. As a mover and shaker, you talk about a strong female and female representation. Showing up and what she has the power to do. Those were two top of mind. It was weird, wild watching Donald Trump Jr. speak, because you close your eyes and my God, it's his dad. He has really taken on the persona and the mannerisms and the vocal stylings of his dad. And I think he's having an epiphany in his lifetime of the shift out of business. And I think he's got a place coming up in politics. As well, pretty darn sharp. And then there's Charlie himself. I mean, the man is absolutely amazing at what he does. His sharpness of wit and ability to absorb information and process information, and just be on the spot, understand where a need is, create an entity in order to fill that need. He's very galvanizing. Some may find him polarizing. I find him the opposite. I mean, I just think he's fabulous.
I find him amazing that at the age of 31, he's created all of this.
Oh, it's huge. It's amazing. It's strong support network, huge following, and people gravitate. They gravitate to that, and that's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
I've seen him grow, actually. His audiences, when he first started going to the colleges, he didn't have that big of a crowd compared to what he gets now, and how so many of them are agreeing with the things he's saying. So I think we would have had a tough time without him.
5,000 people show up at a historically Black college and university. I think it was University of Georgia. All asked the red hats, the MAGA hats, right?
Yeah.
He said he was shocked and stunned. They were just giving them away. And just that surge that you're seeing on these universities, and that following is big. But I think Charlie's the catalyst. I think the seeds of the movement have been there. I think that there, if you look across the United States, you look across Middle America, you look across these places with strong conservative values, we've been choking in this liberalism. And we've been all good soldiers and good citizens, and we're not going to say anything because, okay, they're elected and we're going to be nice about it. But I think we got to hear, and we're just choking on it, and the kids were choking on it. And now they have somebody who says it's all right to stand up and to be conservative and to come out and take it back and bring the values back.
Yeah.
So you're thinking JD Vance, good.
I got a soft spot for JD. I think, obviously, read his book and seen the movie Hillbilly Elegy. What a tremendous story.
Yeah.
And, gosh, what a great speaker too. I think he just completely dominated his, I think you could put a Muppet up against their candidate, and he would have dominated that debate for vice president.
Yeah.
But he was absolutely masterful. I think he has a strong future. I think he's a good counterpoint. I think Mr. Trump has assembled an amazing team. I work in now, and I'm like, God, between Vivek and Elon Musk, I said, these guys are the smartest guys in the room. And they're working together. They're working well together. They're doing some transformational things, and this is why the establishment is nervous, very, very, very nervous. JD is a solid backup play. God forbid anything should happen to Donald Trump, but I think we'd be in good hands with.
Yeah. And there you have people out there that are trying to pit them against each other. With Elon and Trump. Just knowing how Mr. Trump is, if you threaten him, he's going to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the theory was that, they were going to say that Elon is controlling Trump, which is going to make Trump go after Elon. So they just have to be aware of what these tactics are, and he needs to not play into their hands with this.
I don't know who's his coach this time out. I think he was a little direct in the last campaign out there, and he said a few things that were off, and he allowed himself to get rattled. He's been very well handled this campaign, and I think he took the time to regroup. And part of the speech that he made when he was in Arizona, we talked about the gift in disguise that we were given in the fact that he did not get inaugurated in 2020. He said, had we had a tremendous first 4 years, had the election been certified the way it should have been certified, because they did clearly win it. Call me an election denier. The statistical improbability of all of those ballots dropping mysteriously in the night just doesn't play for me. He said we would have probably had an okay second run, but we were still battling the headwinds out there, and we would have, ended up. But we took the time to go back and to think and to strategize and to build a plan and to watch. And now we're going to come back and hit harder than ever. Yeah, and I think he's gotten he's a savvy businessman. I mean, come on. I just had a conversation today with my not so conservative sister who works in the swamp. We were talking about tariffs and componentry and what is that going to mean for building of certain materials, and she's very concerned, or they're very concerned that Trump's just going to tariff the hell out of things, and we're not going to be able to manufacture in the U.S. I said, there's a thing called campaign rhetoric, and then there's a thing called policy making that's out there, and at the end of the day, he's a businessman. And I don't believe he's going to cut off our nose to spite our face. We've got to bring manufacturing back here to the U.S. You can't do that without critical components. I think what he's talking about is penalizing those people who want to work outside the system or work for their own financial gain. I said, but I do think the man is savvy like a fox.
Yeah.
In my humble.
Yeah. I think anyone after COVID, anyone taking over at that point was going to have a rough time with the way things were. So if he did win, it's questionable how well we would have done. So I agree. I'm glad he's in there now, and get things turned around, and hopefully it'll happen quickly. I think he's got to prove himself real quick, because this little shot in the arm we have here right now, it won't last long unless you perform.
Right. And you know what, Bob, and this is where we all come in, and why, you know, we pushed and pushed and pushed as New Conservatives to file and complete, you know, our organizational structuring as a 501c7, to continue to invest in our space and sign and double down on our lease and continue to work. I heard it in every single speech from that podium over 4 days. I heard it in the audience, and we're hearing it here. We don't stop. We didn't stop on November 5th. We can't stop. And the we is all of us. So how do we hold our local elected officials accountable? We should be berating any of our senators or our congressmen who are not behind blessing his cabinet and pushing back on that, looking at who they let through in the last administration. Give the man the tools to get to work and then get out of his way. Yeah. And I think that's what we need to do. We don't just sit back and say, okay, Trump, you're going to solve the problems of the world. That's not possible. We need to continue to stay involved and engaged. We need to run for local office. We need to hold our politicians accountable. I don't know, let's do something crazy. Instead of having politicians, let's have public servants, you know, put it back to the way it used to be. I think that that's really what we need to do in order to keep the pressure up.
Yeah. Okay, got to keep it going. So before we wrap, you've got something coming up real soon here that you're involved with.
We're really excited. So we won the election, and Annie and I sat down and I said, okay, what can we do to keep the momentum going? I said, why don't we have an inaugural ball here in Manitowoc County and invite everybody to have a great big party and just celebrate the work that was done, because we need to keep people engaged. So we are hosting the Rhinestone and Rust inaugural ball on Saturday, January the 18th from 6 o'clock until 11 o'clock at the venue in downtown Manitowoc. We have a great old school local band called the Shy Guys who are going to be playing tunes. We have a wonderful restaurant, Hala on Wheels, who's doing some catering for us with some great fun appetizers. We're hosting a wine and beer bar. Linda Loves Cheesecake, who are making desserts for us. I just got off the phone with the American Legion from Sheboygan Falls before hopping on this podcast here, and they're going to do a wonderful presentation of the colors. And we'll have an honorarium for our veterans and our military serving overseas. We're hoping to get our state Supreme Court candidate to make an appearance after a very busy day. And we are going to party at the YMCA. And this will have some fun. And just really celebrate. Tickets are on our website. It's going to be a fabulous evening. We need to celebrate the wins. And that's going to be what's going out there. And then we can start sharing our programming for the rest of the year. So I'm really excited about it. Some of the guys are a little nervous about, just come and have fun. We ladies, we've been shopping. I've got some sparkly boots and just have a good time.
Okay, sounds good. So did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to leave us with? I'm trying to think if I had any of the other questions that I forgot to ask you.
Great.
I think if I were to make a closing appeal out there, any of the listeners who are sitting there and you've been a Monday morning quarterback or a bar stool or an armchair critiquer of what's going on, this is your country. We are blessed to live here. And as someone who has grown up steeped in the history of the American Revolution, we can't let it slip away. And it's all of us. So rather than just opine or complain, not the word I wanted to use out there, have a conversation, get involved, get out and vote, do your duty as a citizen, and stay engaged out there. And we can have fun doing it. But let's stop throwing barbs at each other, and let's just pick up the plow and clear the field and start rebuilding this country.
Yeah. So, well, our goal is to try to get as many people such as yourself involved to come on and talk. We got a whole ton of different subject matters we want to talk about. I think they're all important. And it's always nice to get other people's opinion. Sometimes you feel pretty strongly about something and you think you're right about it, and you realize, okay, maybe I'm not so right. They've got a point. And so you don't find out until you get into a discussion like this.
Absolutely. Hey, and I would be more than glad. I mean, I'd love, Bob, again, thank you for your hospitality. I'd love to enter into a good general conversation about the state of our educational system or our employment system or any of those things down the road. both sides of the fence. Let's get together and let's have a conversation and let's get to work.
Sounds like a plan.
Save our country.
Save our country. You got it. Rich, what do you got?
And I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I said, I write a check every once in a while and I bring people together, but you know, I leave the heavy lifting to other folks. We all have a role to play, but thank you so much.
You put your money where your mouth is.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Take care, everyone. We're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to Political Counterpoint. We hope this episode has sparked some thought-provoking conversations. Share your thoughts on today's discussion and engage with other listeners in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell for future episodes. Let's keep the political conversation going. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, X, and visit our website at politicalcounterpoint.com. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and let's make a difference.